We're going to keep these presentations going on. Thank you guys for tuning back in. If you are live streaming into our stage, the Nikon Live stage, we're going to get going again. We got 3 great programs coming. After this program, we have Dixie Dixon and Andrew Hancock, but very next up is someone who I admire and I've been following for many, many years. He's probably one of the most creative people I've met when it comes to lighting, shooting in low light, trying different things to create angles, trying to create different reflections and refractions, and it makes the work so dynamic and exciting. Now, I can't not get up here and not say what it would be like if you thought to yourself, do I have 5 million people following what I do? That's real deal. That is legit. He's here with us today. He's going to talk about finding your style with light and editing. Let me introduce the Nikon stage, Brandon Woelfel.
Thank you so much, Mike. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is my first time actually at imaging, so I'm very excited to get into the topic today. We're going to be talking all about style. I feel like my favorite compliment to receive when talking about my photography is, oh, I recognized your photo because the colors, the person, the composition, and there's no watermark or anything. It's quite literally how it came together, and that's my favorite thing to hear. So again, finding your style with light and editing. So halfway through, I'm literally going to transport to this chair. We're going to open my laptop and talk through how I go about editing a photo in NX Studio. So we're going to be talking about creative picture controls and recipes, and we'll dive into that. But first off, exploring photography styles and kind of how I came to be within my photography style. And I feel like it kind of came about by just kind of trying every genre. So playing around with, again, I'm not a concert photography, but playing around with concert photography and using it as a way to even see my favorite artists and be able to be on the stage with them and shoot them. It's, again, something I do completely for fun, but it's a way to just step outside my comfort zone. I feel like with concert photography, you're not in control of the lighting. You're not in control of the artist you're shooting. You can't go up to them and be like, hey, while they're performing quickly, could you just move that hair? That's not going to happen. So I love finding myself in really challenging situations, and I feel like concert photography is that for me. Moving on, landscape photography. There's nature photography. We have wedding photography. And for example, I'm, again, not a wedding photographer. I'm going to reveal maybe what I am at the end, and I feel like you can kind of see that within these photos. But this is my sister. So this was literally at her wedding. I did not shoot the wedding. I don't want any kind of part in that. I feel like, especially on a family or friend's wedding day, you kind of want to experience it for yourself, but I am all for bringing my camera and just kind of taking some photos. Of course, she wanted some for herself, so I'm down to experiment with any kind of genre. I feel like that's how you grow within photos. So wedding photography, night, this is kind of how I got started as well, shooting with low light. Low light can be so challenging, dealing with grain, dealing with trying to find light sources, dealing with high ISO. Putting yourself in really challenging situations like this can just find your style and also just improve your photography. Also storytelling. I love including props within my photography. I feel like that's a great way to improve your style and really drive through a narrative. So we just put a little light inside this fake book, and that's her light. And it also adds to a story. I feel like if you're going to post a photo like this on Instagram too, you could add a nice caption to drive that narrative along. But finally revealing, we see I'm a portrait photographer. So this is what I love to do, and I'm going to kind of take you through when I started over 10 years ago. So that was around 2013. This is a kind of a grid of all my photography throughout the years. So starting over 10 years ago until now. And I'm going to kind of go through quickly each year so we can kind of see how my style has evolved, and maybe you guys can take some notes in terms of if you really want to knit down your style. I feel like maybe little tips and tricks I'm going to talk about could help. So when I first started, I was not confident enough to ask friends or family or models to shoot, so I would just shoot myself. So this is a photo of me on my street that I lived on at the time. I got my start within computer art, so I love editing. I love playing with colors after the fact. So that's really what I knew how to do before I started photography, and I feel like the combination of the two really kind of came to be within this year. I don't know why I was so into the cooler tones in this year, but that's just what I liked. Moving on, I kind of found that shooting at different types of day can bring your photos a lot of different colors. So I feel like I really had no idea how important lighting was, especially when I first started. And I found that when you shoot at sunset, you're going to get these crazy colors. You're going to get a lot of saturation. You could tell I was kind of confident in starting to ask some family and friends. So this one is me at the time, and so is that. But that's just my neighbor, and then this is a friend. So just kind of evolving style through also asking around, even just family and friends, if they can be in your photo. Moving quite along, 2015, this is kind of like where I toned things down. And then moving right along, 2016, kind of discovering different props and also playing with my camera. I feel like I was only shooting in auto settings when I first started, which is completely and totally normal. But I was finding these images across Pinterest or Instagram where they were doing things with long exposure that were really cool, and I wanted to know how. So I feel like this was the year where I really started to explore my camera. 2017, this is where I played a lot with fairy lights, and that's where a lot of, Mike was saying, my following kind of came from that. Moving through to 2018, we have 2019. This is also when I started traveling, so this photo was taken in Ireland. So bringing my camera along on trips that I normally wouldn't was giving me different backgrounds and diversifying the models I was shooting and the locations and playing around with different types of light as well. 2020, I feel like I was really starting to find the style that I love to shoot, playing with different greens. I feel like green is a really hard really hard color to edit, and I just always recommend just challenging yourself. Shoot with the things that you don't want to, and for me, green. So even changing the green to something more magical, like maybe like a teal. And this photo is literally shot on grass, but it kind of looks like a carpet, but this was grass at night with a really high continuous blue light. And this was a time when I was only really playing with continuous light and also some natural light. And not until 2021, 2022, I started to incorporate different types of flash in my work, kind of always trying to step outside of what I normally would do. And we're in 2025 now, but this is the last slide I have for you because obviously we're only like a month or two into the year, but this is my work as of recent. And I feel like if you compared it to 2013, you would obviously see a lot of growth within my compositions. I feel like it's more mature. And I'm happy with my style right now, but I know that like looking back at your photos that you take 5-10 years ago, there's always going to be a difference. But also how style can really book you jobs and get you money within the photography world. So these are two of my photo books, Luminescence and Ultraviolet, that I created. The first one was in 2017, and the first one was in 2020. And these were really pivotal in kind of expressing my style throughout the years. When you look inside the books, they're completely different because obviously my style has kind of evolved. And this is going to be a quick little video, but there's no sound, so I'm just going to talk through. So this was and this has actually been playing during breaks during Nikon Talks, which I noticed, which is funny because I had no idea that would kind of connect. But this was on campaign for shooting with the Nikon ZF. So I was lucky enough to be a part of this, and it was just a really cool opportunity because I was really able to bring in what I want to shoot. And obviously with campaigns, there's little things that you have to note, but for the most part, I had really creative range over what I was shooting. So I just brought in the things I know best, and that's low light, that's projections and color, and also working with the people that I know and love. So bringing in the people that are in my circle and know that kind of will perform. Walking through, so mastering the basics to really elevate your style. I feel like that's kind of why, obviously, like my style has transformed into what it was. I feel like I'm always playing with different kinds of basic things. So lighting for one. I'm going to talk through this lighting setup really quick. So this was actually shot last month Nikon. I'm an official Nikon creator, so they hosted about 10 of us at this really cool space, and we kind of got to have free range within what we wanted to do. And so with this setup, I have a Pro Photo, a 2 attached to a softbox and a grid from above, and then we have a side light that's creating this kind of warm light onto the model's face. And then I got really, really lucky because this was just actually coming through the window right there. And I obviously post-processed the colors, but there isn't much that I did other than that to arrive at this result, which I feel like whenever I am kind of exploring light and learning more, my photos just become better because I'm more confident and know what I'm doing when on a location with a model. So this is the settings that I shot it with. It was shot with the Z52, and then one of my favorite lenses is the 24-70 f2.8 lens. And I shot it at a pretty low ISO. I feel like when you're working with flash, you can get really low ISOs, which really helps the quality. I shot it with f8, which has, for me, I've come a long way from that because when I first started, I would quite literally only shoot at wide open at like 1.2, 1.4, 1.8. I just really loved how compressed the images looked. But learning that, you can change up your f-stop and you'll still walk away with really quality photos as long as you're thinking about things like light. So next up is posing and how that can kind of elevate your style and your photography overall. So this is the kind of setup I have going on over here. We have a continuous light attached to a softbox, and it's not too big. I really, because I just kind of grew up shooting with, like on my street, in my driveway, I like to kind of be compact even with my shoots today. So I really never go bigger than this when it comes to lighting. But yeah, we have a continuous light on a softbox, and that's just getting this really nice kind of clean white behind her. So you can't really tell within the behind the scenes image, but this is placed behind her, so it's not touching her at all, so that we can really separate her from the backdrop. And then we have another continuous light with an optical spot attached, and that's been really fun for me to be able to shape my light better. And that's what's creating this really cool sort of like light beam across her eyes. And I always just, whenever I'm talking to anyone about photography, I always love to kind of separate the two, meaning the background and the foreground, and lighting them completely different and walking away with something that's really unique. And these were the settings and camera I use for that. So the Z9, 24-70. Trying to, again, keep my ISO low when I can, but I feel like with Nikon cameras, you're able to boost it up pretty high. Also implementing color, so adding in pops of blue here. Same model, actually same location and same day, but just playing with a different backdrop, changing up the outfit. That's how I like to kind of get a lot of diversity within my photos, is on a location, being able to change things up and walk away with two completely different images that were shot on the same day. And you wouldn't know because we're just, again, same light as well, I just realized. So this is the same softbox. We just moved it to the front of her. And then the optical spot that I was talking about that was lighting her up here, we opened up the blades to be able to have this spotlight effect. So we literally just moved the two and switched them around. And I feel like it's easier said than done, but if you look at lighting as simple as that, I feel like you can really walk away with some cool stuff. Settings for that. So playing with the Z9 again, because that's the same day. Keeping the ISO pretty low again. Also coverage. So thinking about, even if it's a pretty chill like situation, like there's just two lights, it's me and the model. Playing with, again, settings here, sorry, I went back. But playing with the kind of close-ups as well as like a medium shot, and then a wide shot, and just getting a lot of uniqueness within your imagery, even if it's the same exact situation. Like he kind of just moved his face a little bit, but I was able to walk away with completely different images there. So yeah, this was with the Z2, 24-70, f2.8, and then we can kind of zoom out and see a little bird's eye view of what my lighting setup was there. I really like to shoot with continuous stuff, so that's what's going on here. But now we're going to dive into the edit. So I'm going to walk on over here. I'm going to grab my laptop, and we're going to jump into NX Studio really quick. I also need to put my glasses on because I have an astigmatism. So the glasses need to come on when I'm editing or working. And we're all ready to go here. I can just go through this. Oh, wait, 1 second. It's a little, wants to kind of come out there. Cool. Okay, sorry, it was wanting to come out. So this is a quick photo we're gonna edit with the time that we have left. So this is a photo I shot within NX Studio, and I'm gonna kind of take you guys through how we can kind of put that flair on an image that you see within my photography, and also how powerful NX Studio can be. I feel like it's a pretty underrated program, especially compared to everything. So I'm going to first start out, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like with me, I hate when horizon lines are a little off, especially when it's a little off. That's like the worst. I feel like if we're going to go crazy funky, we could go with like a totally skewed horizon line. But we're going to take this little tool right here, if you guys can see that up here, and we're going to drive a line through the horizon line, and it should do a pretty good job. We might take a few tries, but we're going to, sorry. But we're going to try to get this horizon line a little bit straighter. And then I feel like we could move forward with the crop because this can be, with the quality, I feel like we can make it vertical, but I feel like I'm going to keep it horizontal for this. And then I feel like because this image we're experiencing the sun set on one side, we're getting a lot of vignetting happening on that other side. So to bring this up, we're going to, and to kind of like even it out, we're going to click on this tool right here and touch on this point. And these control different things like the brightness, the contrast, and the saturation. And it will kind of take to what you're kind of doing. So if you can see, that's the kind of point we're tweaking here. That's a little too much, so we're going to bring it down. But little things like this, what I'm doing right now, is how I feel like I try to make my photos come to life. I feel like when you're on a location, you can, for me at least, I feel like, because coming from a computer art background, I have always just loved being able to play with colors after the fact. If you guys were here yesterday, we talked through a panel all about creative picture controls, and that's a really cool thing you could do within your camera while on location. But I'm going to show you that in just a second. We're just kind of lowering the exposure on this side because it's a little bit too high. And then we're going to get into some really cool color correction. And what's really cool on this side, you can actually just get rid of it, like if you didn't like it. But let's dive into these creative picture controls and also talk a little bit about recipes. So if you're unfamiliar with what creative picture controls are, those are within your Nikon camera. There are things you can see here like Dream. We'll just click on a few to like play with it. And again, you can add these while in camera, which is really cool. So you can see your photo for exactly how it's looking right now while on location. But what you can also do within NX Studio is create your own. So I have a few of my own here. Let me see. I think I have to go. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and select. I feel like I usually shoot in standard, and I think we'll go with standard for now and just do a little bit more kind of color corrections there, going through changing up the white balance is what we could do. So right now we can again create our own recipe with all these changes, and then what's really cool after the fact is that whatever we change and whatever we do right now, we can save this as a recipe and then insert it into our camera. And apply this effect in real time. So I feel like I tend to go, at least recently, with a little bit more of a warmer temperature. So I'm just going to kind of go through, when I edit, I very much am very tedious. And when I play with one thing, I feel like I like to go back and change a bunch of other stuff. So I feel like for right now, we can kind of decrease the exposure here, play a little bit with our highlight protection. So we went in a little bit more specifically with the left side of this image with the sun there, but we can go in and really protect those highlights even more. Bringing up our shadow protection a little bit, that was a little too much. And going through back to contrast. Playing a little bit more with the temperature. And also here we can change with all these white balances, which is really cool. So if we want to just select one of those, it'll completely change our image. But I'm kind of vibing with this original sort of warmer edit right now. And then we can go through and play with our levels and curves. We also have complete availability over our hue saturation and our colors here. So what we're going to do here is we could select a color and bring that up, and it'll quite literally like really saturate that. It might be a little too much, but showing you guys like how in control we can really be of our edit and how an edit can really just drive your image along. So we're just going to kind of go through a little bit more. We also could retouch the model, but it's a pretty landscape-looking image, so we might just skip over that for now. Going back to the tint, so bringing through some more kind of pink tones there. And then, let's see. We can go through and play with different color picture controls here. So playing with portrait and also play off those picture controls. Because they are presets, but what you could do is you could really go in them and add your own flair, which I love. And what we could do here is we can go through and save our picture control, and we can apply it to our before image. So if we really like that image, we can go through and apply it to other images throughout our shoot. So we can kind of go through this image here. This is something that I feel like is real. The shadows are a little bit too kind of contrasted. So we can kind of go do the same thing and bring through our highlight protections, kind of saving those. Bringing through our shadows. Bringing those down a bit. Elevating our temperature, once again, I feel like that really, for me, I don't know why, just bringing up the temperature really helps an image. And kind of going through, if we want to play with, so these are kind of the edited ones that I have here. So we have cinematic blue, we have neon, and we have teal and orange. And what's really cool is you could go on imaging and the imaging cloud on Nikon and apply these to your own photos. And there's a ton of other creators on there. If you really like how their images look, you can go through and download those to your camera and apply them to whatever you're shooting at the time. And again, whatever you're changing, you can throw in your camera, which is really cool. So I'm going to go through maybe a different image that has a little bit more color that we can kind of enhance here. So playing with our hues in this image, I feel like this image would look really good with maybe, let's try portrait or maybe even vivid here. That's a little too much. I feel like portrait was looking good, giving it a little more contrast and kind of having it look how I would normally kind of shoot something. But let's go back to that kind of hue and play with some of those colors here. So we can bring that down and play a little bit here. And going up with this and being in control too of just every little piece of this is super. You make the one little change and it affects your whole photo. So you want to be really kind of tedious here, playing with our curves tool as well. Bringing down. I feel like what's really kind of unique about a curve tool is getting the shadows and playing with blue, red, and just literally every single one being full control here. Bringing up the exposure a bit. That's looking nice. Going back into temperature. I love an image that has a lot of reds, but also has like the complementing colors of a warm and a cool tone can look really unique. So lowering the temperature on this one is actually bringing a lot back out of that kind of blue sky back there. But what we could do is we can add this to our picture controls here, and we can go through on a similar image from this shoot, and you can see it right here, and we can apply that same thing. And sometimes, it may look a little different, but what's really cool is that you have the ability to save your edit and go back to it, which is awesome. This one, especially with like concert photography, if you're shooting a lot of lights that are a really bright sort of hue like this pink, it's really striking, but it's a little too much. So with the tint slider, bringing a lot of greens forward will really just start to color correct our image. And it could literally be as simple as those two sliders. And if you know you're going into a shoot that has a lot of those, again, maybe it's concert where you're going to have a lot of really saturating pinks, blues, you can come up with a picture control to save on and shoot with later on, which is really unique. So going through here, we're going to select, let's go through our different picture controls here. So we can go with, I always love denim. I think it really brings out that bright blue. We can play with pop here. Finding the picture control that is for you, and while on location, also being in control of the strength. I feel like a lot of the time when you're playing with picture controls, they could be a little bit too overwhelming because the strength of it. So being able to bring that down in your camera is super, super helpful here. But yeah, for me, I feel like when I'm shooting, sometimes I'll be on a location and I'm not really obsessed with how things are looking, and I feel like you could look at someone's work and really think they are confident within every single shoot, but a lot of the times on my shoots, if I'm not loving the colors, I'm not loving how the model's looking in terms of how the light is hitting her or something, I think bringing in picture controls and kind of changing up the entire look, and I feel like different shoots kind of work with different picture controls. So for example, I was shooting one time and everything was kind of looking sort of flat, but I felt like a film edit could really drive it home. So I went in, I forget which exact one it was, but something like sepia, for example. I know Mike was talking about this. He felt like he was liking the location or something he was at, but he felt like it could be even stronger with that kind of sepia look. So yeah, going in there, and for me, I think, again, it comes down to whatever your preference is, but I think for me, I really stick with standard for the most part, and then I'll bring in my recipes. So for this image, we're going to go a little bit more in depth here, bringing up the temperatures and the shadows a bit. And then bringing in some of this hue slider here. And really going through literally every single thing. Again, we can go back to this and brighten up the face a bit here. And bringing down up the contrast. Whoop. Oops, sorry. But yeah, I feel like with this presentation, I just really wanted to be mindful about how much you actually can be in control. I feel like when you're first starting out, there are so many things that it's very overwhelming. And coming back down to just the basics, again, lighting, composition, playing with posing, all of these things, adding them all together can create a really impactful image. So yeah, I really thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And yeah. Thank you, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I promised, one of the most creative people I've ever met. Thank you, Brandon,
Thank you. I appreciate
for
it.
the program. I loved it, and I learned a lot.